So you're new to Genshin, you do a 10 pull on not the current banner, and you get 5-star Ayato. Now, what do you get with Ayato besides a character who I forgot to make a video on when his banner was the current banner? Well, Ayato is a sword-wielding Hydro user, and he's actually really good at filling in on any team that needs a Hydro damage dealer. And a big thank you to one of my community members, Certs, for letting me use his account. I think this is like the third time that I've had to use his account for a video. So again, thank you to him. Also, if you want to join the community, there is a link to the Discord in the description down below, as well as my TikTok where I make these videos, but basically shorter. I'm Cassie, Mango, whatever the hell you want to call me. And because not every player is AR60 with a 36-star Abyss, I make videos that hopefully anybody can understand. So if you do learn something, do be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And with that being said, let's get into this video. So like every single beginner guide video, first we're going to show the build of the character that we're using. So I do this just in case you go into your game and you're not hitting these same numbers or close numbers. It might just be because this is a much more built character. So we've got 23,000 attack, EM is 93, which we're not going to be really using Elemental Mastery with Ayato. Crit rate 58.3 over 239 with 120 energy recharge. Hydro damage bonus 61.6%. We do have a level 90 Farina's weapon on him. And then we got a 2-piece Echoes of Offering and 2-piece Heart of Depth. His talents are 3, 8, 7, and his constellation is 0. So let's start looking at his normal attack, his skill, and his burst. So Ayato is a character that is going to be doing a lot of his damage through his normal attacks after you use his skill. But for his normal attacks, I believe it is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His charge attack is going to be a lunge forward, where he does several hits upon the lunge. Now his skill is going to be a little different. So when he uses his skill, he is going to do Hydro Infusion into his normal attacks. Now, his skill does have a few different components. When you first use it, he will lunge forward and there will be like an illusionary hydro watery silhouette of himself. If this is near enemies, it will explode, dealing hydro damage. It will also explode after a certain amount of time. So if he attacks opponents after using his skill, he will gain an increase in damage based off of his max HP. This is how you gain stacks to do more damage. Also, he is not able to use charged or plunging attacks once you use his skill. It is only normal attacks. And if you swap him off the field after using his skill, it ends. Now his first passive, if you put the illusionary water silhouette thingy near enemies and it explodes, it will give him an effect equal to the maximum number of stacks. Now that we've read everything, let's see what that actually means. So we want to position the water illusionary thing close to enemies, so that way it explodes. Now he has the stacks for his normal attacks, and you see that they are hydro infused. He is doing hydro damage, not physical damage. So we're going to do it again, placing it near enemies so that way it explodes and gives him the max stacks. If we try to do a charge attack, it just does his normal attack repeatedly. That's all that it does. And now we're going to do his burst. Now his burst is going to do this hydro field that is going to do intermittent hydro damage raining down from the sky. It is random and it's not random at the same time. I'm going to let this kind of play out, and then we're going to do it again. Okay, so we're going to do his burst again, because when you do his burst, if you use his skill with his burst, you also get extra damage bonus on top of it because of his burst. So using his burst and skill together is a phenomenal way to increase the amount of damage that he is going to be doing. Later on, he does get a passive that actually regenerates energy for his burst on its own if you're below half, but that is at a much higher ascension and not necessarily something that I would think is beginner friendly. Now, for a beginner artifact set, I'm going to say a 4-piece martial artist because it gets up your normal attack and your charged attack damage. And even though you can't really use his charge attack with the skill, it still gets up his normal attack, which is where the majority of his damage is going to come from. So if you can choose your main stats and get the set bonus of martial artist, then you're going to want to do attack percent sands. You're going to want to do hydro damage bonus goblet. And then for your circlet, crit rate or crit damage, depending on the weapon that you have on him. So for some 3-star weapons, you do have Cool Steel, which does get up attack percent, which is great. It also increases damage against opponents affected by Hydro or Cryo. So this can be really, really good for him because of the Hydro. You can also refine this up pretty high to get this, I think, to 24%. So he can really take use of this passive because of how his skill and burst work. He would always just be doing that extra bit of damage. For Harbinger of Dawn, this does get up his crit damage as well as his crit rate if his HP is above 90%. While making this video, I found it very difficult to keep his HP above 90%. Maybe if you were using him in a freeze team, it would be much more doable. If you have a shielder like Noelle, or if you partnered him with maybe Kaya to keep that HP above 90%, this could be a good weapon for him. Now, you do always have the Skyrider Sword, which gets up your energy recharge. After doing this, it gets up your elemental burst. It also increases your attack. Movement speed would not be helpful. You would want attack speed there, but that's okay. If you do have the Skyrider Sword, and this is really like the only weapon that you have, this could be good on him as well. I would not use something like the Prototype Raincore, which is a 4-star craftable weapon, because it is the physical damage bonus, and once you use his skill, you're no longer doing physical damage. So it would not be a good option for him. So if you're far enough into the game to have access to the craftable Inazuma weapons, this one can be really good. I actually think this is his best free-to-play weapon. This does get up his attack percent as well as its passive, kind of helping keep his energy recharge up for his elemental burst. Now, talking about Inazuma and a weapon from Inazuma, Ayato is from Inazuma, which means an Inazuma is locked behind the Archon quest. So if you have him and you are not to Inazuma, you will not be able to ascend him past level 40, and that's only if you did the trial when he was out to get the material to get him to level 40. So now we're going to talk about a couple of beginner-friendly teams that you could do with Ayato. Now, you saw how much Hydro he applied. So he would work really, really well in any Hyper Bloom or Bloom team as your on-field Hydro damage dealer. Now, unfortunately, Lisa is not a fantastic, she's not a good Hyper Bloom trigger. Now, Kuki was a 4-star on his banner when it was out. So if you were doing pulls and you got Ayato, you probably got Kuki Shinobu. And if you did get Kuki, then this team would be a much better Hyper Bloom because Kuki can very reliably trigger the Hyper Blooms. This would actually be a fairly good team. You'd be able to produce a lot of blooms, especially if you have Kale's passives unlocked and at a higher constellation. If you had Kale's passives and some of her cons unlocked, this would actually be a really decent Hyper Bloom team. I would maybe put in a different Dendro character for Barbara instead of Barbara, like Yao Yao or Kirara, who is also on Ayato's banner. But as a beginner-friendly party, we're not going to do this because you are never guaranteed to get Kuki Shinobu. So instead of a Hyper Bloom, you might be able... instead of a Hyper Bloom, you might be able to do a really good Fridge team. Now, a Fridge team is where you create the Hyper... Now, without getting into it, because I will make a video on this later, a Fridge team is essentially making blooms, but freezing the enemy in place so that way they can't move out of the way for the blooms whenever they explode. So that's what we're going to kind of run. Okay, so we are going to use his burst. We're going to go to Kale's burst to produce a bunch of blooms. Go back to him, and this is just a freaking awesome bloom team. You can create so many blooms for exploding with Ayato. If we bring in Kaya, then we'll be able to freeze the enemy with his burst and Ayato's skill and Ayato's burst. So we can just freeze the enemies in place so that way they cannot hit us or do much damage, giving us just a free chance to do damage to them. We're going to go to Barbara and get some healing going.
Ready, steady, go!
Get Kaya's burst back up. Go to Ayato. And just keep everybody frozen. That gets near. Can actually be a very, very great way to use Ayato without having to worry about him getting hit. His burst lasts a long time, too. Very, very long time. So we're going to run that again. Something else that we could do if we wanted to. If you did not want to use blooms, because blooms do hurt or they do damage your on-field character, we can go and use Noelle. And use Noelle's Geo Shield to kind of protect Ayato, as well as freezing them in place. So again, we are going to be using Kaya and Ayato together to freeze enemies, to do damage to them, so that way they cannot hurt us. We do have to watch out for the enemies that are ranged, which is fine. Get some healing going again. Oh, did not mean to do that. Let's do that. And we're going to do this. Get the shield up on Ayato. Perma-freeze all of the enemies on the field, so that way they just cannot do much to you at all. It's a great little combination, especially with so few characters.
Oh, so sorry. Mind the damage.
Great for perma-freezing. The only thing that you really have to watch out for are the enemies that can hit you from a range. And there we go. That's going to be it. That is going to be the beginner guide for Ayato. If you have any questions, drop a comment, ask away. I'll be sure to come in and answer it. Do join the Discord if you're looking for like co-op players. If you need to ask questions or anything like that, there will be a link in the description. We're a little unhinged, but that's okay. So that is going to be it for the Ayato guide. Again, thanks to Starts for letting me use his account, and I will see you in the next video.